Hello, everybody. My name is Niko Peters. To the left of me is Andrew Brown. Bottom of me, Ben's Brown, and the bottom right corner is Han. And this is the Simple Creatures podcast, where we're simpler than a fucking Rubik's cube. Woohoo!
Alright guys, that intro song was Time Will Tell by Packy. Check him out in the description. He is probably going to be our intro for a very long time. He is on top of the game. Check him out. Cannot recommend enough.
Yeah,
All right. And you want to introduce the topic?
Yeah, sure. So today I just thought we should talk about content creation as just like it seems like all of us are kind of leaning towards producing content, right? And like I know Niko, you're like wanting to start a YouTube channel, and Han, we're all starting streaming, right? And you're kind of leading the charge on that, which is like, and on this podcast. I really personally, I don't know if I've told this to you guys yet. I may have told you, Han, Ben, but I really want to make like an Arduino channel, or something.
What's that?
It's like it's basically a microcontroller, like kind of like a how-to robotics thing. I want to like try and get kids more interested in robotics and like at least let people know what their resources are as far as like getting into robotics and learning skills is. Like I want to do something like that, but like I don't really know what I want to do yet. And I just thought we can kind of discuss like what our like individual aspirations are for what we want to create and why and what we hope to achieve, you know, that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think it seems pretty cool.
Han, do you want to start?
Yeah, I can start, but real quick, I just want to make sure, Andrew, you hit record, right?
Yeah, no, we're recording.
Okay, cool.
Don't worry, guys.
Don't worry, guys. Us
I
people
got
aspiring for content creation ought to record.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
Alright, yeah, no, I started, I started streaming about a month ago.
We started streaming.
Basically just streaming random games. Yeah, I can help you get set up with that later.
Yeah.
The streaming random games. I'm streaming off my PS4, so the stream's not super high quality. And we're also not very funny, so the stream's also super not high quality. But we do our best, and we're getting better every day. I guess it kind of just, I watched a lot of streamers. I watched a lot of Nick Merckx, Scump, TST.
Yeah.
And I just taken, my big thing is I'm just taking ideas that I see in all of their streams and applying like, I feel like that would be cool in our stream.
Yeah.
So trying to apply stuff like that. Like eventually I want to get to the multiple cam setup that TST has. Niko, I don't know if you know. So they play games and there's 3 of them. And on the right, instead of just like one person's webcam, they have all 3 of them split. So you can see all 3 guys. And it's pretty cool setup, the way they have it.
Yeah. Do you watch Twitch at all? Or do you watch any streamers?
Yeah, I watch some Twitch, but the inspiration, as I'll talk about later, is mainly from YouTubers and political satirists that I've loved since I was a kid. So,
on Twitch?
But no, they were kind of before YouTube's time. They kind of came about during. I'll explain later, but a lot of the stuff that I want to do is kind of inspired by Jon Stewart and the work that he did and Colbert did before Colbert fucking sold out as a grifter. So.
Dude, I love Jon Stewart. He's the best.
Wait, so yeah, dude, that man's so talented, right?
Jon Stewart?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Man's a genius.
I'll talk more about that later. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, why did you initially like want to start streaming? Like, what was the motivation there?
So a big part of it is just an excuse to play video games. But another part of it is just it's one of those things where like being in the Nick Merckx stream, which I've been in, I watch Nick Merckx most. Building a community like that, like he's done, really just inspired me. Like, I wonder if I could do something like that. So that was kind of the motivation for me because he's done such a good job of building what feels like a family. And there's guys that are in his stream that aren't part of that, but it's the ones he's close with. And I follow him on Twitter too, and just his entire vibe that he gives off is a family vibe.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of like subs and donations that he gets. It's one of those things where it's like, Nick Merckx, like I've been going through a real rough time, but like watching your stream has given me the strength to keep going through it for like an hour a night. I watch your stream and it's just given the strength to go through it. And I was like, that only happens when you've built a real comfortable family type feeling in your community. And that was sort of the jumping off point. I was like, I wonder if I could do something like that. That was the jumping off point for me.
Gotcha. Yeah, the community that he's built, like the whole MFAM, they're really supportive. That's what I've found. They're really positive, right? Mm-hmm. And Nick's loving it. I mean, I don't know, Ben and Niko, if you know who Nick Merckx is or whatever, but like
I know.
He had like a house tour recently. So let me explain. So basically, he's a professional, video game player. He used to, what was it, Gears? Yeah, professional streamer. He used to play Gears.
Do you want me to give his background? I think I know it.
Yeah, you know a little bit better than I do. You can go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So Nick Merckx started out in Gears. And from my perspective, he's up there in like top 5 Gears players when he was playing.
Gears, as in like Gears of War?
Yeah, Gears of War. He's a professional Gears of War player, really, really good. He then transitioned to Halo, and he had beef with Ninja in Halo. That's the funniest thing. And then eventually he transitioned. Yeah, dude. And then he transitioned into Call of Duty, and started streaming his Call of Duty. And he won a boatload of online tournaments in Call of Duty.
It's like over 300. He released the other day. It was like, I've won over 300 COD tournaments. I'm like, damn.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he really blew up in Fortnite. He had a strong community, but it wasn't very large when he was streaming Call of Duty. But he blew up in Fortnite. And ever since that, he's had this sort of just like familial vibe about his content.
Yeah, he's like probably one of the most positive and like kind of family friendly guys, even though everything he does isn't family friendly, like as far as like cursing and stuff, right? He's very like how to say it, good-hearted, I think, and that comes out in his personality and in his streams, and so a lot of people are attracted to that, and it kind of
some of us call
it brushes off to his fans as well and into the MFAM. Yeah. So you want to basically try and kind of build a community like that? Is that kind of the ultimate goal, or at least what you would ideally want to happen?
To me, the ultimate goal is to just have fun doing it.
Yeah.
I don't want to put too much stock into saying, this is what I want to do, but it's one of those things that I've enjoyed doing thus far, and as long as I continue to enjoy doing it, I'm gonna keep doing it.
Yeah. Plus, it's like if we're playing video games together, like why not stream it?
Right.
Yeah. No, that's why it was one of those things that came up, and it was like, might as well.
Yeah. Because we haven't really had people come on yet and like really start watching us, but I can imagine it would be like really fun to have like even just like 10 or 15 people just like watching the stream and like interacting with us and talking with us. I feel like that'd be so much fun.
Right.
And like I don't like get into games with them as well, like just like be super interactive.
Oh yeah, dude, especially like Among Us, dude. If we had like 6 people watching the chat, it's like, yo, hop into a game of Among Us.
Yeah, dude, that'd be so sick. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I feel like that's just the best way to consume any media is together with a group of people, and if you can cultivate that online, it's like, why not? If you're going to be doing it anyway, playing video games, watching things, reacting, it's the best way to do it.
Yeah. It's also kind of a way to take what is a hobby and a way for us to relax and kind of turn it into something that's productive, right? Where like we're doing, and it kind of, I don't know, for me when I'm streaming, it really energizes me a little more than like just regular playing video games does when I just kind of turn my mind off, and I kind of come out of the session just a little more refreshed, a little more energy, I think.
Yeah. I think it's something I think that we all agree with, and it's just one of those things that we're new at. We're not very good at it because we're new at it. And we're going back and we're kind of reflecting after each stream session about, it's like, okay, what do we think didn't go so well? What do we think went well? And I've been like chopping out clips and stuff like that to put in like a funny moments video. And so me rewatching the stream, it's like, oh, okay, that wasn't great. Here's some things we can improve on. Here's some things that went really well that we should keep doing.
Yeah.
And so that's also been a fun process because it's a new thing. So you see a lot of rapid learning, which is always fun for me.
Yeah. What are some of the things you think we can improve on? Just wondering. Because I think you've been going through the editing, right? And like doing all the editing. So you're probably thinking about it a lot more than we are.
Yeah, I think a lot of what we lack is commentary outside of just what's going on in the game. We seem to hyper focus on the game, and so if you're watching it and I guess this was mostly when we were playing Warzone, it was like one of those things where you're not watching us play the Warzone because we're better than anybody else at the game, because we were like mediocre at that game.
That's why you watch us play Spellbreak.
Yeah, that's why you watch us play Spellbreak. Niko, we are litty on Spellbreak.
I'll take your word for it.
Game's been out. This is the third day the game's been out. We've played like 7 games and we've won like 5 times.
It's kind of a big deal.
It's a battle royale, but it's not a shooter. It's like wizardry and like mages, so you can like fly around and like levitate shit and like shoot magic spells at each other. It's really dope. It's really dope.
It's sick. It's really sick. They've been in beta for like months or even over a year, I think, and they finally just released like for 2 years. Yeah, they finally released
Alpha was
across platform, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and so like especially that I noticed in Warzone was just one of those things where it was like, okay, it's kind of dry to watch. But yeah, I think we'll just keep getting better, and it's pretty fun so far. So
yeah, I agree. I'm enjoying it.
Happy when we get viewers.
Yeah. Yeah. What about the podcast? Are those two supposed to be like connected at all, or is it more like just kind of 2 different motivations?
I wanted to do the podcast because I think that my opinions are more important than other people's, and they should adopt mine without using their own.
That makes sense. Yeah.
That makes sense. I can agree.
No, I do a podcast.
You're better than us.
The intro for the teaser for Jeanette McCurdy's podcast?
Yes.
Doing a podcast? I didn't know.
Yeah, that's exactly the reason. No, I just.
That's hilarious.
To me, I want. There's conversations that we have sometimes that are just really interesting to me, and I feel like a podcast is a way for us to have those interesting conversations on a weekly basis during, like, even if I'm back at like Iowa State and there's no COVID happening, we're still separate, so we won't have those deep conversations, those interesting conversations. I feel like a podcast is a place where we can have a routine set up to have those types of conversations.
Yeah.
That was really the motivation behind it for me.
Yeah. Especially during COVID, like, it's tough for a lot of people. And I can't imagine going through COVID and like not being able to talk with you guys at all. Like, that was just suck. Like I'll tell you, being in classes, like I even have like two of my four classes are in person right now, and it's still lonely. Like you don't talk to anyone in your class.
Right.
There are masks on. It sucks. It really sucks. I definitely value, especially doing this during COVID. I think it's a good time.
If I may add, I could definitely sympathize with that. I'll explain later about my ambitions for content creation, but the reason why I wasn't on, we originally planned on having a podcast last week, but it didn't happen for various reasons. I couldn't make it, whatever the case was, because I was moving into my new apartment on campus.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a massive apartment. It's an upper division 3-bedroom apartment, and both of my roommates decided to not attend this semester. So I have a massive place to myself, and I've never lived by myself. It's weird to think about that I'm 21 years old and I've never had to live alone.
Mm-hmm.
But when you live alone, and I have maybe 3 classes a week from my 6 courses. I have 3 individual classes a week, which are in person.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, not even that. Yeah, there are 3. And it gets super lonely. And a weird, unexpected thing that happens when you live alone is that there's an eerie silence. It's not scary, it's not creepy, but it's kind of hollow. It's like, there's some sound that's supposed to be there, but every time you talk, it's not the right sound. There's some feedback that's supposed to come back for whatever reason. And, as I mentioned briefly, I watch some streams, not just because, I want to get an understanding of how people behave on a stream and how you're supposed to interact with the audience on a stream, but it gets really lonely. And a podcast talking, whether that's with you guys or just running a podcast on your own, where you're getting interactions with people from across the world or across the nation, that can help make the silence a little less awkward.
Yeah. Do you find yourself going entire days without talking at all?
I was gonna say that I've lived alone over some summers for a couple weeks at a time at least. And I found myself having thoughts that was I don't know if I've said a word out loud in 2 whole days. Do you ever experience that?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I am the most fucking talkative person to myself. That's partially because autistic people tend to just be very talkative. That's just a trend that happens in childhood, and a lot of adults carried it on into beyond their youth. But I talk constantly. I'll give myself literal lectures about thoughts I have in my head. But that's a pretty unique situation for me, that I talk to myself that much.
It definitely happens to me.
You talk to yourself?
It definitely. Well, yeah, but I'm saying when I live alone, I end up having to talk to myself, because I'll catch myself where I'm like, wow, I can't even imagine what my own voice sounds like because I haven't talked in so long. So I'll just start talking out loud because I need to hear my own. I need to hear a voice. To quiet all the voices in my head.
I think that has a kind of insightful connection to content creation sometimes, because as I'll explain later, a lot of the reason why I'm into content creation is because, specifically for me, I want to get more involved in political discourse online, and sometimes, and a lot of the time, in political discourse.
Thing to do.
Yeah, you can go into it.
Yeah, it's so if you have mental health issues like I do, it's the absolute perfect industry to go to and try to break into, is the political discourse online.
Dude, everyone's
Trust me.
Friendly there. I haven't met a single person. I'm a part of that community, and just haven't met a single person on there who's been toxic at all.
Everyone's
Absolutely.
so nice and
Second best
respectful. It's really objective.
Second best place, Niko? YouTube comments. Go into the YouTube comments. They're really supportive there too.
They are.
I've heard similar things. I've heard
Really just a
PewDiePie talk
great
about that quite a
community
bit.
to interact with strangers.
But I think what I was trying to get at is that as we're talking about being alone and how it's kind of nice to hear other people's voices, I think that's kind of what you and what I mean by you Andrew and Han were getting at. Like you're playing video games alone and you're having fun, but you kind of want other people to join in on it. So I think that can kind of help explain maybe not everyone's reason here, but maybe some of us, the reason that we're doing this is to kind of have our voices heard on different levels or to different extents.
Yeah. You can talk about why you want to start your YouTube channel now. I don't think.
Okay, I didn't want to interrupt what you and Han were talking about.
No, you're chilling.
I think we came to a natural end.
Okay. So I have my ambitions for content creation are slightly complicated. Right now I'm working on 2 channels. One channel, An Anxious Adult, is a video essays channel about philosophy, culture, politics, and what happens when those kind of concepts and those fields of study intersect with one another, and kind of cover less talked about conversations in those discourses online. And I have a second channel, Ben Shapiro's GIMP. Such a great title. I'm so proud of that.
What is a GIMP?
GIMP is, it's funny because
have you ever seen Goonies?
Yes, I've seen Goonies.
Have you seen Pulp Fiction?
Yeah.
There's a GIMP when Zed gets killed. Spoiler alert. But if I'm spoiling it for you 25 years, if I'm spoiling this for you 25 years later, like
spoiler, you have to say it beforehand.
No. It's Pulp Fiction.
Spoiler alert, that shit that I just said is a spoiler.
You just disappointed our entire audience.
It's not our entire audience of 3 subscribers. Shout out to those 3 or 4 subscribers. But come on, guys.
It's not like us, dude. I'm pretty sure that's us. I'm definitely one of them.
And I'm one of them.
I'm the channel owner. I don't know if I can subscribe, but if I can, I am one of them.
So a GIMP is like a sex slave for one, and number 2.
Okay.
So it's funny that the purpose of Ben Shapiro's GIMP is to read short stories and read other classic books and literature in the voice of Jordan B. Peterson, which is really funny because thinking of Jordan Peterson as Ben Shapiro's GIMP is just absolutely humorous to me. And the second thing is that I think of my it's funny that Jordan B. Peterson sounds so much like Kermit, and I think there's an angle there where Kermit, who serves as an explainer to children, there's an adult version of that where it's reading Bible stories and I think eventually probably reads fan fiction once I can afford to do shit posting like that.
Oh my God.
And the reason why I have that is because the Ben Shapiro's GIMP channel is a channel that I can produce weekly or bi-weekly content that I can produce more frequently and can get the kind of the content that I'm producing out there more frequently. And then An Anxious Adult is video essays that I want to take time on and want to make sure that I execute on properly. And having those.
Okay, well, we can do it after.
You should just never break character, ever.
Oh, I never break character.
Be like J-Reg. Just never break. Just have an entire false persona going that no one can tell which one is real.
By the way, for those who don't know
Did
J-Reg.
you see the clip he sent us? He sent us a clip. Didn't break character the entire time. It was awesome.
I didn't see it.
No, you didn't get the Oh, but I'm currently recording Aesop's Fable. I'm recording an audiobook of Aesop's Fable in the voice of Jordan B. Peterson. And I sent a demo to them, and they all seemingly really liked it. So I'm continuing with it because it seems if other people can hear the similarity, it's a pretty good indication. But as I was saying, the two channels right now serve as a kind of a gateway for me to get into more stable content creation where I can kind of make a living off of it. And eventually I kind of want to get to a point where I have a channel that's based on something beyond video essays or political commentary. I've always had the idea of having one main channel and a podcast. And the channel, the YouTube channel would kind of have to explore, I don't know, have you guys heard of multi-potentialites? Like the concept of a multi-potentialite? It's basically someone who's very, very curious about a lot of different things, and they don't like choosing one thing because they feel like they're missing out on opportunities on other things. There's a TED Talk on it. It's really good.
Oh, interesting.
And I think it's an underexplored concept in content creation where it basically has the fundamental premise that what the channel does changes like every 2 years. So there are channels that are dedicated constantly to gaming or political discourse or beauty or makeup or whatever it may be. But I want to have a channel where every 2 years I dedicate myself to one topic really seriously and just try to like master it as much as possible. So for 2 years I would try to figure out like what's the best way I can be a runner and try to run the best marathon I could in those 2 years. And then the next 2 years is how can I be a really good writer? And by the time the 2 years are up, I have a novel that I really like. And I like that idea because it kind of tests what it means to be a content creator. Oftentimes people go to a content creator for the topic that they address, not necessarily for the person they are. Obviously, there are both components, but what happens when you watch a person not just because they do a thing or they address a thing you like, but you follow them for the way they approach all these other ways of making content for other people. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I think that's a big problem that you see in a lot of content creators, especially older content creators, is that they end up doing the same thing for a long time and develop burnout because of it, because they dedicated their channel or their platform to one specific thing, and they end up boxed in and are basically not allowing themselves to develop a full platform that allows them to express themselves fully. So what you're getting at is using content creation as like an extension of everything that you do instead of just dedicating it to one thing. Yeah,
and I would also suggest that it's a test about how, like, I think especially nowadays there's a lot of questions about expertise and how you become an expert and how fast it is to become a highly regarded individual in a certain community. And having 2 years for me is the perfect amount of time to really focus on a certain discipline, whether that's reading, writing, producing music, running, knitting, so whatever it may be, testing how fast can you become, how fast, or maybe not just streams, but just how fast or what does it take to become a highly regarded member in a community, and seeing if one person can do that for so many different communities, but the constant in all of that is the person itself. And that sounds like a really cool idea, and I don't think it's really addressed. It's not really done. It's like there are people who talk about being human guinea pigs, and they try a lot of different stuff out, but it's not them actually changing what their channel does on a day-to-day basis. And then the podcast. The podcast is, I mentioned earlier that Jon Stewart is a big inspiration of mine. And I don't know about everyone else here, but I watched Jon Stewart as a kid.
Hold on, Niko. I got to point this out. High quality production. Andrew has to get up partway through a podcast and close his lines.
The sun is coming through.
The funny part is that Andrew probably can't hear us, so we're clowning him as the podcast is happening, and he's the one recording.
We just can't hear him.
I'm pretty sure he can hear us.
Do you guys see the
I'm also pretty sure he was the one you closed your blinds behind you before we started.
Do you guys see that glare? That was wild. No, I had to close that.
It's all good.
All right, continue.
And
so.
Yeah, right. We don't have the budget for post.
We just keep all the.
We don't have a budget.
We just keep all the outtakes.
Yeah.
So, Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert, before Stephen Colbert went on to CBS, were people that really shaped how I like my political opinions. Pretty young, and it hasn't been until recently that I started watching videos of like Jon Stewart going onto Fox News and absolutely obliterating people like Bill O'Reilly or Chris Wallace. And there's a video in particular of Jon Stewart going on Crossfire, and I seriously, like, if you're watching this, I highly recommend watching that video because it has. Crossfire was a show.
It'll be linked.
Yeah. So Crossfire is a show that CNN used to have with Paul Begala, a Democratic advisor, and Tucker Carlson. And
sounds great.
Like, it's not just important because Tucker Carlson is now arguably like top 5 biggest media figure in the conservative media sphere.
I'd say just period. He's, I think, actually the largest, most watched media pundit in the nation, period.
Yeah.
I might be wrong about that, but
yeah, I think it's him and Sean Hannity are fighting for that top spot in at least in cable. Just to be clear on that, I think it's cable media that he gets the highest ratings when it comes to his show. And Jon Stewart is cited as one of the reasons that show got canceled, because he has a 14-minute appearance on that show where he basically demolishes the idea of Crossfire, which is basically faux arguments between two different sides, where he basically addresses how shows like Crossfire would try to get like, here's the left and here's the right and here's how we work it out and be united. And he's like, it's really bad. And he tells them to their face, like, guys, this is the flaw with what you're doing. And
was it like that they pit two against each other as foes, as opposed to having a discussion that's supposed to come in with the presumption of compromise type of deal?
Yeah, it's kind of like CNN's business model now, where you have like, there's a climate change denier and a climate change believer, and like they debate it out, and it's like this presumption that like there are but just because there are both sides to an issue or multiple sides to an issue, that they're all equally valid. And I want to have a podcast which kind of gets at what Jon Stewart was doing on that show, which is have on someone and kind of be a critic. A lot of times on interviews, it's often not necessarily softball questions, but it's questions that don't fundamentally challenge the premise of what someone pushes forward or the way that a person advocates for a certain position. And I think it would be super illuminating to have a person on and be like, hey, listen, I think I have some concerns about this, and I'm wondering how you address these fundamental concerns. Because if you don't address them, you can have really super big problems later on as you get these positions advocated for. So a good example of this is like today, Trump made like an executive order or signed some piece of legislation that basically disavowed or did not allow federal agencies from training people in racial sensitivity or critical race theory. And
I saw it.
And yeah, it's he I don't there was a press release that the White House press office released about it today. And it would be really
un-American to do race training, or racial sensitivity training.
Yeah.
Which like
and there's a lot of complications to it. But one of the foundational scholars to critical race theory is Kimberly Crenshaw. She's the one that coined the term intersectionality.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be super interesting to have a conversation with someone who is responsible for a profoundly controversial or profoundly influential idea and see how they think of the criticisms towards it. And see, and it's also it kind of gets at another aspect of content creation, which is right now content creation is a lot less about what you're doing and more about how you respond to people who don't like what you're doing. You know, there are comedians who complain about like free speech or cancel culture, and there's a lot of other content creators who complain about that. And it seems to get at something really important, which is that if you're making content now, if you are producing entertainment for people, you don't just have to be concerned about the quality of your material, but how you respond to the criticism. And that becomes super important, not just for making people feel good about themselves or having fun, but it's political strategy, it's social movements, it's pushing for economic policies, it's for creating actual change. And having a podcast where we try to understand how can we criticize each other, not by breaking the ideology down or the person down, but by building it up and creating a certain vision and a certain practice to make that vision possible, seems like an angle. It's almost like workshopping, like live in real time workshopping of someone's ideas.
Like kind of take someone's idea and say, how can we make this work? How do we make this workable?
Yes.
Better than it is right now, as opposed to just criticizing it into the ground.
Yes, but to be fair, there are certain narratives people push and certain positions people have that should be broken down. But to suggest that this is the only way that you make any type of political progress or you make any type of social change, I think is somewhat misleading. And that kind of rings back or echoes back to my comment about my desire to get into political discourse. That trust me, I am a radical leftist, so I'm not foreign to criticism or problematizing shit. It's a part of our existence. But like, there has to be something beyond that leftists like myself are kind of recognizing, which is, okay, critique the thing and maybe suggest solutions. But for the people who aren't a part of those solutions right now, how do you get them to be a part of the solution? How do you get where they are at to where they should be? And that seems super important.
Yeah.
And I think the podcast can achieve, maybe not achieve it, but can be a part of a system that tries to work towards that type of thinking, which can then be a part of institutions that build up the future of what this country is and what the world is.
Yeah. I had a conversation just the other day in one of my classes. We were talking about like racial bias or unconscious bias, and it was a super interesting conversation. But we basically watched this video of that was entirely about how we can use technology in order to eliminate unconscious bias, or at least to help ease conscious bias in America. And like one of the things was like for hiring, there's like this hiring app that basically hides your face and it hides your name, so that people can hire without like knowing about like whether without knowing your race, without knowing your gender, right? Without being able to guess it by your name, just based on your credentials. And that gave me this thought. It was like, oh, that's really cool. You can actually you instead of trying to just criticize people and change people, which honestly isn't really going to happen, it's attempting to change a system and allow people to have actionable tasks to change a system. And then like eventually people will come around if you change the system. But since we're in a system right now that kind of encourages or incentivizes or creates unconscious bias, right? People aren't gonna just like change on a dime, right? It's not gonna happen. So by giving people those kind of actionable tasks, I think that's like a really positive thing to do, and I think people will come out of those kinds of discussions feeling more hopeful. That's definitely how I left that conversation.
I will say, though, when it comes to unconscious bias, the literature, specifically the psychological literature on it, is super duper uncertain about it. There was just a meta-analysis released by the Public National Academy of Sciences in the United States of America, PNAS, and it's looked over 480 studies on unconscious bias, and basically found, yeah, I know. As I said that thing, I now realize what I said. PNAS. Yeah. I'm clear and I'm here.
Andrew starts laughing and I lose it. Andrew starts giggling and I'm gone.
Listen, as a queer person, I don't mind penis, but that's not what I mean. I'm not talking about penis. I'm talking about one of the most highly regarded academic institutions in the United States.
Yeah, but penis. I mean penis.
Penis. I don't mean dick. I mean penis. Like Nas, like the rapper P-Nas. Yeah.
See, I just aspired to work for Peanuts when I grew up. Like that. Yeah. That's who I.
Don't we all?
That's what I want to work for. Peanuts.
If you're not motivated by peanuts, I don't know what you motivate.
Right? It's just like the most important thing in America right now.
No, guys, I've been lying the entire time. My entire content creation goal is to work for PNAS and to just that's all I want to do. Is work for PNAS.
You are so mature.
It's fine. Hey Ben, you know what we are? We're simple creatures. That's what we are.
Simple creatures.
Dude, we can have the most intelligent discussion, but
that was really crazy.
Oh, bro, but fucking the minute Niko said penis and it's gone.
There's no
so
it.
We were flying today. It was like minimal, like immature jokes. This penis comes out and we are gone.
Listen, to be fair, a literal penis did not come out of anybody. It was just the word. Just for anyone that's auditorily listening to this and not watching the video, no one whipped out a penis. Just to make this very clear.
Yes.
Can you imagine working for PNAS? Is that it?
PNAS, yeah.
PNAS. Can you imagine working for PNAS? I could not come home to my wife and children every night. I couldn't do it.
Dude, the kids must be clowned on so much.
Dude,
like the
yeah.
Like you go to like you're in third grade. Yeah, and like
I've always found it hilarious that people work at Dick's Sporting Goods. I've always found that hilarious.
Dude, people have always known.
We've given as society, we've given Dick's a pass.
Yeah.
Have we?
We have. But like, okay. It's like when parents come in to classes and give like their occupation, they have like jobs.
Oh no!
Like the Adam Driver shit. On You're Jimmy's dad. I'm the operational manager of Peanut. Your kids would not have to go through that year, dude. There is no way.
I'm the regional section chief of Peanut.
All right.
Let's
Let's collect ourselves back together.
Bring it back to center.
Go back in.
All right.
So as I was saying, there was a massive meta-analysis done on like over 400 studies of implicit bias, and there's very little evidence, if any, that unconscious bias is a real thing. It's just the way that it's measured is so finicky that it's super hard to empirically at least notice when implicit bias is in place. But I take your general point though.
Within people, right? Not within systems. Within systems, it's fairly obvious. You can just be like, oh, like X% of black resumes are people with black semi-names are rejected, right?
Right, but it also depends on the methodology of that research. Listen, I'm not denying systemic racism in any way. Like it totally, absolutely exists. Like systemic discrimination exists for race, gender, disability, sexual orientation, gender identity. Like it exists on many, many levels. But there are some studies that do get cited which don't have the best methodology in representing how that implicit bias in in systems and structures take place.
Yeah.
So I just want to like make that disclaimer known. But I do take your general point though, that people try to change, or when public figures or political commentators go on streams and have debates with like their fans and like try to change their mind, it never works because trying to change a person's mind is you're already starting off with the wrong premise that they're wrong. And trust me, like if I'm debating a fascist or a Nazi or a racist, it's clear that they're wrong. But if I'm going in with the intention of saying you're wrong and you better change your mind on it, the likelihood that that's actually going to happen is super low. But if I make it right, and the podcast that I want to do wants to explore the question, well, if you can't change a person's mind directly, how do you get people involved in a movement? How does Black Lives Matter go from being super unpopular in the early 2010s to having a plurality of support in the United States? Like, how do you do that? How do you get people to look at something that they usually don't like and make it digestible? And trying to do that in a way that that can both be, in a sense, praxis, like in terms of practicing the thing, and also centralize, being a kind of a place where a lot of discourse can take place. Because as a leftist, one of our biggest issues is that we don't have institutions that can organize and that we can rally around. Bernie Sanders is super important because he was the first real political figure in the 20th century that we could all go to, all support, all fund, and say, this is the guy that we want. And everyone else has been really mediocre or sucks like shit. And I hope that the podcast isn't necessarily that place where that institution building and that type of praxis happens, but can kind of help people build those institutions and allow for the conversation to happen where we can understand how do we build a leftist vision of the world, and how do we reach an equal, just, free society. I think having both the channel and that podcast would be super cool, along with like writing that I would want to do, like on the side of writing novels or writing short stories, because I really like writing. So
it doesn't make any money. So
writing doesn't make money.
That's how you write. This is what you write.
It depends. It depends on what you're doing. Because if you're doing freelance, it can make you some money. I know that California
is a novelist.
Yeah, yes. You do have a point there. The being a content creator would allow for me to actually spend good time writing because I can actually put 2 or 3 hours a day into developing a plot, making sure my characters are on point, and putting out writing that I really like, that addresses certain experiences or speaks to certain viewpoints that often don't get talked about in literature or novels or even just nonfiction books about politics, philosophy, or whatever. I believe someone wanted to say something, but that might have been Ben.
Yeah, I think Ben went to go do a keg stand. So
Ben went to do a keg stand. Ben, let's see. As someone who has seen people do a keg stand, Ben would never do a keg stand. He might do a keg stand, or like he laughs and lolls, but like no, it's not. Ben, you wanted to say something before I continue with my comment.
I just wanted to make a comment on. So, as much as I know you like to criticize the IDW, people like Jordan Peterson and whatnot.
Yeah.
You kind of want to do a similar thing to what the IDW has done, which is create a space to workshop ideas. And you can obviously there are criticisms to be had with what do you mean? Looking at my monitor.
You're not looking at the camera. That's all.
You're looking. You're looking sideways.
Yeah.
You see that, right?
It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, I think that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. It happens.
The worst part is his glasses are crooked. Oh wait, no. The worst part is his glasses look crooked.
Look away, Ben. We don't want to see those ugly teeth. So you're saying that it's to you. I sound like I want to build something that the IDW has built.
A community of people who want to workshop ideas non-personally in good faith, which is the goal, whether they achieve it or not, of the IDW.
I don't think the IDW fundamentally does that. And that's a conversation we could have about the IDW.
You define for those who don't know what the IDW is, please.
Yeah, that would be really. So the IDW is it's short for the intellectual dark web, a term coined by physicist Eric Weinstein, and it's a group of public intellectuals that talk about dangerous ideas. And the reason why I would disagree with you, Ben, is because a lot of the members of the IDW aren't really like trying to workshop ideas. Like what Jordan Peterson does is not fundamentally talk about ideas that aren't allowed in the mainstream. Like there was just polling done by Politico about how people don't like cancel culture, about how people, 62% of Americans believe that like they can't say what they actually believe. So it's not as if the IDW is talking about stuff that isn't mainstream. To me, what they're doing is being and this will be definitely controversial. They're kind of justifying like edgy opinions, like having Charles Murray and being like, oh, I don't know, like maybe black and white people do have different IQs. Like that's not edgy. You're just doing like race science and like doing a bad job at it, or like saying that postmodernism and Marxism have a connection when like they fucking don't in any like meaningful way when it comes to the literature about them. They're, to me, more or less political movements that try to be I think to me a good way to describe the IDW is it's repackaged centrism. It's centrism that tries to appeal itself as counterculture when leftism and radical politics, which they definitely aren't, has always been and currently is counterculture. But I would take your point further in saying that I'm not, even if it was true what you were saying, the IDW fundamentally hasn't built any institutions. It hasn't. It hasn't built any meaningful.
Well, they've only existed for about a year technically. I don't know exactly when the term was coined, but
2 or 3 years ago.
They've never worked officially together. They're not an official.
They're not an official group at all.
It's just it's basically the internet just kind of took this idea with it and ran and basically said, oh, all these people, Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro, Joe Rogan, Christina Summers, Dave Rubin, Sam Harris, all these people are like, these are the people that we should be listening to because they're actually debating ideas that a lot of people on Twitter don't actually want you to talk about, which I agree is true for the most part. I would disagree with you with the idea that the what is mainstream is like actually against cancel culture or whatever, because right now what's mainstream and what's actually making the difference in people's ability to hold a job after saying something racist 10 years ago is Twitter. That's what's mainstream. If you take a poll and find that the majority of people think X, that doesn't mean that it's mainstream.
Right. I would say mainstream is more to do with what, like, it has to do with the Overton window. What can get you in trouble for saying? It doesn't matter if the majority of people agree with you or not.
Maybe this is a better clarifying point about what I'm trying to say. It might be a divisive issue about like what we can talk about in the political discourse and what gets accepted, but there is no doubt that the people in power overwhelmingly side with the IDW. The president, the people in the Supreme Court, the people who have real, genuine power in our society overwhelmingly side with the IDW over with like basic tenets of cancel culture. And even then, conservatism, like conservatism as an example, there is a way longer history of radical Christians canceling teachers for being gay or for being black than there is the least powerful people in our society standing up for shit that they disagree with. And that, for me, is maybe my fundamental criticism of the IDW, which is a fundamental misunderstanding of the political dynamics that exist. Antifa and Marxism they barely have any power. They cannot really exert any force into the political discourse or into how policy gets passed or to how social change happens. It's not nearly to the extent that's being, that they're infiltrating Western civilization or they're breaking it down.
So we can talk about we can argue about the content of the IDW on a different topic, but I just want to point out that whether you think they're achieving the goal or not, the goal of a lot of these IDW figures is to parse out ideas, is to workshop ideas. It's to get Sam Harris and Ben Shapiro in the same room and get them to have a civil political discourse. It's to, there is that dynamic, whether you think they actually end up achieving it or not. And there's criticism to be made, but I think that is the kind of thing that you are looking to do, and it is something that space has tried to do.
Yes, it's tried to do that, but my focus is not on intention, it's about praxis. It's about what they are doing. And that's where my criticism comes from. Okay, yeah, you strive to get Ben Shapiro and Sam Harris to talk about the liberals versus conservatives, but fundamentally, Ben Shapiro hasn't really changed, Sam Harris hasn't really changed, and what they're having, I don't know if you guys saw this announcement, but there is a cancel con being planned. I'll share it. I swear to fuck this is true.
Oh, what now? Wait.
And he laughed.
Yeah.
All right. I think once he shares this, we should really move on because we've been stuck on this for a long time, and I feel like we've fully fleshed out Niko's reason for content creation.
Niko, are you there?
Is he back?
Yeah, that was my fault. That what happened was that I accidentally shared a screen. Like I was trying to open up a tab when I was
There was porn on it.
No.
We get it.
This is what I was just on.
Quick alt tab.
This is what I was trying to. No, this is what I was.
Just say you're into bestiality. Like, you don't have to hide it.
This is okay. So this is what I'm sharing. So this was just announced the 2 days ago, and Cancel Con, and like, let's all be real, guys. Cancel Con is cringe. Like, Dave Rubin literally just bought a $2.2 million mansion, and he's concerned about being canceled. Like, that is my criticism. People who are getting funded by billionaires, people who have access to the President of the United States or his lackeys, they're doing fine. And the fact that they are feigning persecution, like this is some fucking McCarthyist era shit, is so wrong. And that's my criticism of the IDW. With that said, you bring up a good point, Ben. Whatever the content, whatever makes up the IDW, they are trying to make space for conversations about topic they perceive to not be as accepted. But even then, I wouldn't say that, because talking about what makes an ideology applicable, or how we apply Marxist praxis, or how we apply certain theory or leftist literature, that's not necessarily forbidden. It's just a kind of underrated aspect of political conversation. And there's a harmful narrative around leftists where it's like, oh, the left is purity obsessed, and like we won't accept anyone except someone who agrees with us 100%. And like, it's super fucking annoying because 60% of the time that I have conversations with people about leftism, that's all they talk about, and I have to clarify that's not what the left is. And it becomes really annoying because I can't then talk about the solutions that we as a community have for the world, that we can offer to them. But because they're concerned about mean people on Twitter, they don't care about poor people not having health care. And that is really important. So I didn't mean for this to be a deranged rant about the IDW and about how they're a bunch of cucks. But like, I just want to make sure what I plan on doing for the podcast, what I plan on doing for the channel, is super clear. And I don't want it to make it seem as if I'm trying to imitate the IDW. So that's I'm sorry that that took up so much time.
The best form of flattery.
All right, and with that, I think we can move on. Niko might not be with us for the rest of the. Oh, he's back. Okay, never mind.
I was mauling. I was just rage quitting. You couldn't hear me, but I was just absolutely just beating the shit out of a pillow just now. So Haan talked about what he aspires for in content creation, and we had a pretty extensive discussion about my ambitions and what they mean. So Ben and Andrew, the floor is yours.
Sure. I mean, so Ben, I don't know if I haven't heard you talk about. Do you have any aspirations for content creation, or are you
anything at all? Do you want to do anything at all, Ben, in life?
I know. I came up with this topic, and I was like, I know Niko and Haan have a ton to say about it, but I'm not entirely sure what you're.
So I have hit. So something that I would like to do is build a sort of skills channel, or maybe a channel to put out like singing covers or things like that once I'm better. And but one thing, do you know? You can link this channel. I was kind of inspired by this channel, this guy named Mike Boyd, Boyd. He has his whole channel is dedicated to just him learning how to do things, and he does like he'll have a video on him learning how to do learning how to spin a ball or stack cards or run a marathon or whatever, and it shows his process and how he learned how to do these things. I think something like that would be very cool, kind of similar to what Niko was talking about before. I think doing that would be very cool because if there's something I'm interested in, it's learning how to learn quicker and better and retain skills. I think that would be a really interesting place to take like a YouTube channel or something. As far as intellectual content, I'm a bit hesitant just because I don't think it's smart to put out intellectual content as a young person. I know that I'm stupid and my my arguments and my ideas are always developing, which is why I don't want to put anything permanent out there.
Your ideas are stupid.
I am very well aware about. Really quickly, I am very well aware that I'm a pretty dumb dipshit, but like I still think there are points to be made.
We are all simple creatures.
So one reason I like
name.
Right. So there is a balance to be struck because there is the good that comes out of content creation, which is organizing your thoughts, putting yourself out there for critique. But then there's the negative, which is putting stuff out there that even a few months down the line, you're going to think, wow, I'm really stupid. And people can point to that years from now, and you're going to have to disavow things that you've said. And I'm a bit hesitant to put out intellectual things because of that. I think there's other ways to workshop and develop my own ideas without putting myself out there in that way.
The one question I have, Ben, is that the difference between what that guy Mike Boyd does and what I plan on doing is, just from a brief overview of his channel, he does kind of like learn how to throw cards, and it's like a 9-minute video about learning how to throw cards. Then he moves on to like a different skill.
Right.
But what I'm trying to do is, I'm not just trying to learn a skill. I fundamentally have a channel that has a different focus every 2 years. And so to me, the big difference is what Mike Boyd does, it's kind of quick, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's kind of quick, like
it's
stuff
it's
that...
10 minutes, Niko. You got to get that good AdSense.
No, it's 8 minutes now.
No. YouTube lowered it to 8 minutes.
They did?
They did.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Oh, well, thankfully, I mean, I think that's good for animators and sketch comics. Well, it's good for people who do more short form content. It can actually give them a better chance of having a better livelihood. But the difference that I see between Mike Boyd and what I aspire to do is Mike Boyd does these 8-10 minute videos about a skill, whereas I'm trying to fundamentally have a channel where the only constant is me as a person. Otherwise, the type of content I produce, the type of topics that I discuss every 2 years fundamentally changes. So when you think about having, and now I have to keep an audience.
Unless you're really cool, right? Unless the selling point is you, right? I mean, if Ben Shapiro is going to be successful no matter what he does, right? Joe Rogan's going to be successful no matter who he fucking talks to, because of who he is and how he approaches things. So that's something that you'd have to build, right?
Right, but there is a different. but Joe Rogan doesn't go from doing podcasts every for 2 years and then does like motorcycle like tutorials. Like
Sure.
there is a constant, which is the podcast. There is a constant like way that he does a thing, even though the people change in it. But my content fundamentally changes every 2 years. So the selling point is me as a person, and how do I approach a topic when I'm trying to approach a community and learn and try to offer, material that usually isn't provided in that community, or do it in a way that's in some way unique. So my question for you, Ben, is when you think about this type of meta learning or learning how to learn, is it more like Mike Boyd, or is it more like what I'm thinking of doing?
I'd say it's more like what Mike Boyd does.
Okay.
I'm interested in just learning unique skills and putting that out there. Not necessarily shifting it every like few years. Obviously, I want to keep skills updated, but yeah, I'd say it's more closer to what he does. And yeah.
The one other question I would ask is, I think the big trade-off with having a Mike Boyd, and I'm not saying that there are no trade-offs with what I do, but one thing that I see that could be a problem is that some things take a long time. Some skills take a long time to learn, and if you're trying to produce a video every week or every 2 weeks, you're gonna be limited in the type of skills that you can learn. So, whereas with what I do, I can spend 2 years trying to learn how to produce music, and at the end result would be I produce a really cool beat tape, or I produce a really cool album with an artist that likes my content. So how do you think you could address that flaw of there are certain skills which take a lot of time to learn and aren't necessarily friendly to content that you want to produce weekly or bi-weekly?
I'm gonna jump in before you respond, Ben. There's a channel from a guy called Matt Giavella that I think Andrew showed me. And what he does is he tries to do some sort of different lifestyle change, and he puts a video out about I think every month. And what he does is he takes a month, or at least he did last year. He took a month out of every year, and he had 12 new lifestyle things that he wanted to try for a month. 12 new lifestyle habits he wanted to try for a month. And he's done very well. And I think that that approach might be the solution to the question / problem that you're posing.
Okay.
Yeah, and the truth is, I'm not necessarily concerned about the length of time, A, because it's not something I'm focusing on for income, and B, because you can be working on multiple things at the same time. Like I can put out a week of me learning how to spin a frisbee or some shit, how to juggle correctly, while working on running the marathon.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, different skills take different amounts of time. Therefore, you can work on multiple things at the same time.
I'm only asking because I'm just curious about how you approach that problem, because I'm thinking about that. Before I approach a channel like that, I'm trying to think about how do I address the fundamental concern of like years on one type of content intensely, and I can take my audience through the process of learning that skill at an expert level, and there are going to be trade-offs with that. So I'm just curious. I'm asking these questions, and I'm curious about how you're thinking about approaching those types of issues, because it's an issue that a lot of content creators face when it comes to figuring out how they make their vision possible.
Sure, but it's mainly because I wouldn't be really focused on putting out content at like a steady high rate. If I were to create a channel, it would be more focused on few and far between quality videos.
Okay,
That's
that makes
the person that I am.
a lot more sense.
Yeah. I think I got one more question for you, Ben. Why'd you want a podcast?
What's up?
Why'd you want a podcast?
Why did I want to podcast? It's a great opportunity to have stimulating conversations when I'm just living with my siblings, and I'm not seeing much other people.
For context, explain your living situation, guys. Are you
We are
stepbrother? What are you doing in my room?
For those of you who don't know, Ben and Andrew are stepbrothers who bone each other.
Fuck you. Fuck you, bitch.
You're not supposed to be in my room.
Oh! Alright, we gotta cut this off at the butt before YouTube takes us down for good. Alright, so Ben, you want to get back to, Ben and Andrew live together and they go to the same university, so, they're brothers, twins.
And you might also live with your sister. Just for that joke to be more controversial.
We're living in the same apartment right now. He's there. He's there.
He's there.
Oh.
No, it's the podcast is just a fantastic way to keep up social relationships from people who are far away. Also because it's hard to keep up relationships period during a pandemic. And it's a great way to get out regular content without putting much like technical effort behind it,
Yeah, that's true. I love relying on Han for this shit. Thanks, Han. Your editing, priceless.
I swear, Han, I will pay you eventually. Not right now, but I will pay you eventually for all the work that you're doing behind me.
Nico, trust me, I'm having sex with you for free. So Andrew. So Andrew, I think it's only fair that it was your idea that we have this topic on our podcast, that you finish us off.
Sure.
No, don't, man, dude. No.
With why you got into what your reasoning for content creation?
We can't make stepbrother jokes and penis jokes, and then you say, Andrew, please finish us off. You can't. I'm sorry. That's not happening.
Oh, there was another idea that I wanted to shout out real quick before Andrew
go ahead.
His
spiel.
It's not sexual at all, right? It's not. It can't be sexually misinterpreted. Okay, good, great.
Let's hear it.
There's a channel that I follow called Mediocrity, where
it's not channel, bro. It's a way of life.
What a great idea to shout out Mediocrity. We all are striving.
I don't know why he
named
the channel that. I don't know why the channel is named Mediocrity.
It will be linked.
But
I'm about to see what it is.
No, he's done a series this past summer that I thought was really cool. I thought would be a great way to put out content. Which is he just does quick videos highlighting things that he likes, whether it's movies, books, other kinds of content, sports that he's played. It's called Summer of Love, the series that he did. And I thought it was a really fun way to get to know a person, and a great way to express myself through short, easy content. that would be something I would be interested in doing. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a great idea. Um, I too want to celebrate mediocrity. I think it's important.
I don't know why the channel is called that.
No. That's actually I like that idea. I think just practicing, appreciating what is good in the world is and what you enjoy is a good idea. Honestly.
It's a very positive, easy flow form of content that I really like to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So getting back to what Han was trying to lead us off into. The last person who hasn't. It's good. It's great. It's really this is by the way, I think this is way better than the last podcast. I think this was we had a clear idea and it felt way more natural. The tangents. I feel like we did a really good job with this. By the way.
Are we going into critique before we finish the podcast, or what?
No, I just wanted to say that before Andrew concluded, or before Andrew would be the conclusion. That's all.
Sure. Yeah. No. First, I agree. Honestly. No. So what I kind of want to do, I've always wanted to start a YouTube channel. Always, it's just kind of always been something that's been in the back of my mind ever since like middle school when I started watching Smosh, and I love that shit. I think it's so cool that they can create content and reach so many different people. And like, I remember when I was like, let's start a YouTube club in high school, right? And I just left immediately that semester for 3 months.
Oh, yeah,
I still have a list
create the club. We did create the club, and then because you left, I was like, what was his idea? And I told him where he was going with it, so I'm just not going to do anything.
I still have a list in the notes app on my phone of all of our skit ideas. I still have that. It's really funny. I look back at it sometimes.
Yeah, cringe.
Yeah. It's a bit cringy. Some of it I don't understand anymore because I've seen that. I have that list as well. But no, so I created that club and then immediately went on a semester abroad, which is kind of a dick move. But besides the point. So I kind of always have wanted to be a content creator of some sort. I think it's partially why I got into engineering a little bit. I'm like I like creating things. I just think it's cool to have a finished product. And go through the processes of learning while you're creating it. Super fun. So what I've been thinking of doing recently is doing something along the lines of having people or teaching people. I've learned like a ton in mechanical engineering, and especially in this last year, I've been doing a lot of just self-learning, like on Udemy. I've taught myself programming in C and MATLAB and Python, and now I'm doing C++ and Arduino, and I taught myself how to use the entire Arduino microcontroller environment, which is just like basically like basic robotics. Like if you're like on like a robotics team in high school, you basically use an Arduino to control your entire robot. And it's like super simple. Honestly, anyone could do it. And I feel like when I started to learn about those things, and I was introduced to the resources that exist in order to learn those things. I was learning purely online. I was like, why the fuck didn't I know about this in high school? Like, why did I have to wait until I was like in my sophomore year in college to figure out that I can literally learn skills that I've wanted for a really long time, like for free online in a super easy way. I didn't know that in high school, and I would look at people like Freddie W. online who creates like crazy CGI or other people. I just be like, I wish I had those skills, and just no real way to actually achieve that. The ultimate goal is to just expose people to the resources that exist for them. And I think just knowing that they exist out there would make people a lot more um, how do I say, give people a lot, make them more motivated to, do things on their own. And so what I wanted to do was start like an Arduino channel, so that I can teach people the fundamentals of Arduino, which is basically like circuitry and electricity combined with a little bit of computer engineering combined with programming. And I'm kind of like, I'm right on the edge of starting to make my first video, but I keep having like hesitation about it because I'm thinking like, I don't exactly know where to bring the channel. Have you guys seen Michael Reeves online on YouTube?
Who's that?
So he's this engineer who
Awesome.
he's great. He started this YouTube channel where he builds various robotic machines, various robots, and his personality sells the whole thing. The dude is fucking hilarious. Super self-deprecating, and he just creates the most ridiculous robots. Like, he actually created the Roomba that fucking runs into a wall and then screams. And he had all of his YouTuber friends pre-recorded screams for the Roomba. And
right.
It is the funniest freaking video. And then he goes to Target and tries to sell it to people in Target.
Oh my god.
It's so funny. So anyway, what I've kind of thought is like, I don't want to obviously do exactly what he does. That's stupid. He fills that space very nicely. And what I want to do is a little bit of what he does, where he injects his personality and does projects, but also actually teach people. Because what his channel doesn't do is actually teach people how to do what he does. It's more just like a comedy channel where he uses his engineering skills. But I would like to kind of have a fusion of actually teaching people and like building cool shit, like where like my personality is involved. And I'm just not exactly sure how to go about it. I was just wondering if you guys had like any input or what you would like to watch, because I don't honestly.
I have some advice.
Yeah.
Don't put your personality into it.
One thing that I don't know that field very well. So as a result, I can't give advice specifically on that. I'm pretty well versed in specifically video essay and political discourse stuff, but beyond that, it's my knowledge in other fields of content creation is pretty shallow. The one thing that I would say, the one thing that stood out when you were describing that is you don't know where the channel's going. Figure that out first. Have a vision for it. Every single time that I talked about what I wanted to do, whether that was the two channels I'm working on right now or the channel and the podcast I will eventually have once I kind of establish an audience of some type, you need to have a vision of where you're going, and you need to have something even as simple as like a 2-year or 5-year plan of what you want your content to look like, and what there's a term in startups and in business called minimal viable product.
Yeah.
Figure that out. What is at the root? What are you, for lack of better terms, selling?
Yeah.
And you can and then figure out your audience, learn about what works for that audience, what works in that field of content, and that can give you a much better idea of how you present it, how you market to that field, and how you ultimately find success. I have to go to the bathroom real quick, sorry.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess I can give you some advice based off of Michael Reeves himself. Michael Reeves actually streams all of his builds.
Oh yeah, doesn't he?
So yeah, he streams everything. So if you wanted to stream it, you can stream yourself doing these things, doing the learning part, and then you can put it in like a video of like, hey, after you put up the funny video, it's like, okay, here's how I actually did it. You could put up a second video.
Yeah, I feel like if I'm creating like a robot, like I'm not gonna put a 9-hour video up on YouTube of me just fucking my head against the wall.
Put a series of videos.
I will do schoolwork.
you can upload a series, and you can edit the videos down. So to the point where it's like when you're just doing this for like 4 hours in a row, like you can cut that down to like 30 seconds.
That's what a lot of content creators do, is they'll stream their process on Twitch and then edit the highlights into a workable video on YouTube.
Like that.
Yeah, that would be my recommendation.
Yeah.
So like even if you were to just take your stream and edit it down to be like, okay, here are the key parts of what I did. So like, let's say it's like, 25 minutes, I implemented this code structure. So it's like, I need to make sure I have that in the video. That's an important part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Gotcha.
And even if you want to just sort of talk through it, what you can do is, this is weird. So Hitch started a Minecraft series a couple of weeks ago, and he actually ended up going on a trip to see his girlfriend, and he brought his Minecraft world with him. And so he's been doing voice recordings describing what he's been doing in the series over the footage that he had when he was playing.
Gotcha.
And so if you want to do something like that, where like you just show like you're doing stuff from the stream in the background, but like you're explaining in a voiceover, it was like, at this step I was doing this for this reason.
Yeah. You know who I really liked, and I think might be a little more towards what I want to do. The Hacksmith. I know, Han, I know I've sent you some videos from them. They're great. I want to be a little more educational than they are, and since I follow them really closely, I actually know that they're actually moving towards creating like more educational parts on their channel, so that they can actually teach people how to get into STEM and whatnot. But yeah, I think that's something that's kind of missing from YouTube, and it's a void I'd like to fill. I dig that. I'd love to stream the process, and I think when I'm done with a project, also make like a kind of a how-to, almost like a step-by-step how I did it. How this is like, go through the code. This is why the code works. Go through the mechanical process. This is why this works, etc. Right? Go through the circuitry and create diagrams. I think that'd be really cool. Like, dude, Han, like, you're an electrical engineer. Did you know before going to college that like you could literally download Autodesk and create your own like PCBs? Because I had no fucking clue. That was like, that didn't even register in my head at any point.
You can download Autodesk and create your own PCBs.
Yeah.
What's a PCB?
No, I'm just messing.
Fuck you.
For people who have tech
stands for perforated circuit board.
Bio.
It's just like you can create your own circuit board.
Isn't it perforated circuit board?
I didn't know the P stood for perforated. I never really thought about it.
I guessed
it was made out of. I thought it was because it was made out of PCB material, but that's definitely very wrong. That's plastic.
Oh.
I don't know why. That makes no sense.
It's printed circuit board.
Printed
circuit. Oh my, we're idiots.
Wow.
I guess I should have known that, but
yeah,
I don't pay attention.
You're an electrical engineer, fucking idiot.
Anyway, no, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that you learn in college through taking parts in clubs. It's like that you wouldn't even learn in college if you weren't active in those clubs.
Yeah.
Or active in different organizations at college. And you don't know anything about in high school for most people because no one told you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that you definitely have a market for the content that you want to put out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Andrew,
one thing. Ben, go.
Before we close, why don't you talk about your T-shirt?
My T-shirt?
I don't think we're closing quite yet.
I can talk about it a little bit at the end. That's fine.
Yeah.
I can. What's up, Niko?
And then I'll send it off after.
I noticed, the last thing I'll say is that, one thing I noticed is that I think we've all talked about, like, filling certain voids.
Yeah.
And something that, you know, something that I've noticed, at least in the video essay, political media, political like online discourse sphere, is that it's not necessarily about the void you fill, but how you fill it. You know, there are a really good example for someone who wants to study more about this is someone named ContraPoints. Um, she is maybe she's arguably the first true leftist YouTuber with 1 million subscribers. And that's a big deal because she's a trans person. She's arguably the most prominent person on YouTube and on Twitter that talks about trans issues. And she came up, at least from what I understand, because she made aesthetically beautiful set design and production decisions. If you watch her recent videos, the costumes that she chooses, the the decorations, the items that are used on set all fit a certain image, and it's beautiful to watch. This type of usually drab content about philosophy and politics and culture, and have it being done in this like kind of gay way. Have it done in this explicitly flamboyant and openly queer way that no one else really did prior to her. And I want to make sure that we all understand we can't just fill a void. We have to fill a void in a certain way. We all have to provide different techniques, different angles, different articulations of that angle, and different methods of making that void being filled.
Are you telling me to have a personality, Niko?
I'm not just telling you to have a personality. I'm saying that there's a lot more. Listen, a personality is important, but you can have a personality, but if you can make something aesthetically look, if you could take advantage, especially for video.
Editing is super important. I agree, and the decisions that go into creating a good video, especially in the sphere of
engineering,
right? It's hard. It is hard. You need to be charismatic, and you need to also have a good editor, or be really good at iMovie.
Right, but when you're thinking about engineering, obviously this is pretty ambitious what I'm saying, but maybe you could be the guy that adds an entirely different aesthetic, an entirely different set design to engineering, instead of it being a kind of drab, and maybe the people have a personality, but it's video. Take advantage of making something look beautiful. Take advantage of what my eyes can see. And if you can make engineering a notoriously nerdy and abstract and kind of out there topic, make it seem in a weird way beautiful, that can give you something that another content creator doesn't do.
Yeah.
So I'll leave my comments at that.
Yeah. I'll tell you that the Hacksmith does that really, really well. Have you heard of them at all, Ben or Niko? No. Is this Canadian guy who basically started by creating machines from movies and video games, and took that idea, and now he has an entire engineering workshop of his own and an entire staff of engineers and editors.
Whoa.
It's really, really cool, and they make some of the coolest tech. They'll make Batman's grappling gun, or they'll make an Iron Man suit using micro jet engines, or just totally real, just the coolest shit ever. And what they do is they make the entire engineering process super fun, super accessible, kind of like Mark Rober, where they kind of show the process quickly, with cool music and great editing and with great personality. And at the end, because it's all superhero and video game shit, they make Captain Captain America's shield, and they'll literally just like bust through walls with it at the end. Like they'll put up like a bunch of cinder block walls, and he'll just fucking like punch through them. So like they do that really well, and I think I'll definitely take some tips from how they're doing it, and include that in. Michael Reeves does that really well. Because you can't just show the build process. You need to show why it's fun, right? You need to show why you're doing it, right?
Electro Boom does a lot of that for circuitry and electrical side stuff. Electro Boom does a phenomenal job of explaining everything behind it too.
Yeah. His personality,
circuitry.
I think his personality is the main draw. I mean, I'm not an electrical engineer, and I still watch him, but I don't really have a great understanding of what he's doing with electronics. I gotta admit, I don't fucking get it.
I would argue that you don't need one to enjoy his content. And so even if you don't have a degree or studying electrical engineering, I would recommend checking him out. And just to let you guys know, all of the people on channels that we mentioned that I can remember, I have a list written down beside me that I can remember, will be linked in the description below if you want to check them out.
Cool. Fantastic.
Cool. And did you have any finishing thoughts that you wanted to put on, or you summed up?
I think I'm summed up. I was just trying to use this as a way to kind of flush out my ideas and get feedback. So just let me know, afterwards if you have any thoughts. I'd appreciate it because I want to get started ASAP.
Yeah, and if you want to, you can leave comments on the YouTube video with all of the things that all of us are doing incorrectly with our goals for content creation.
All one of you, all of us, we're all gonna comment with all of our different channels, with all of our proxies. It's gonna make it seem like we have a real community going on.
Exactly.
Yeah, but Ben, you said you wanted me to talk about my shirt.
Well, yeah. Well,
yeah.
I think part of the reason we all are looking into content creation is to get outside of our comfort zones and to gain new experiences. And I think one of the channels that is an example of that the most is what's on your shirt. And it's obviously inspired you a lot, so I think it'd be great for you to talk about it.
Sure. So this shirt is from it's some of the merch from Yes Theory. They're a YouTube channel whose basic premise is that they seek discomfort and they do things that take them outside of their comfort zone in order to make life better, because the true good things in life come when you are outside of your comfort zone. If you only live within your comfort zone, it's really tough to, it's really tough to enjoy the highs in life if you're not putting yourself out there. So they have a million videos that are just incredible. They've definitely been a huge inspiration for me to kind of get my life in gear in the past 2 or 3 years. And yeah, so I love their merch. It's really sick as well.
You wear it all the time.
I do. I confess, I love it. So yeah, that's definitely kind of what inspired me to want to start creating part of it. I want to put myself out there. I think it's important. I think it's important for everyone. Yeah.
Awesome. Well.
All right. And with that, I think that wraps up our second podcast.
Yeah. We put like 2 hours.
Oh, probably.
Oh, wait, I got the thing.
I am recording up. Let's see.
Not bad.
Hour 45. Wow.
Right.
I'm going to wrap this up nice and quick. Hit us with that outro music. Let's get out of here.